was kind of hurriedly put together today. Um, but it it works really well for where both classes are at. So there is a really, really excellent podcast. I put it up on Evolve, and we're going to incorporate this podcast into class somehow today. It's the Thinking Practitioner podcast is two people. It's Till Luca and Whitney Lowe. They're definitely worth following. I know both of them, and they really look at pertinent issues in the massage therapy world. This one happens to be about body work and grief with a massage therapist out of Australia. So as you listen to this, you can get a little bit of an idea of what business is like or massage therapy practice is like in another country. Australia does not have official licensing. They have a couple of organizations that they have criteria for you to become a member, and that's kind of acting in lieu of licensing in Australia. Even though this has to do with grieving, and we all are going to grieve at one time or another, she's going to talk about palliative care, and the importance of that. And so really pay attention. And I haven't decided exactly how we're going to use this day. Depends on how the day flows out. Um, but it's one that I think will really help all of you settle into the real gift that we give with massage therapy, which is comforting care and touch. So there's that. And then the other thing I want to really spend some time with is talking about business structure and how you are paid, and a lot of really kind of slimy business practices that are out there. And I want you to have a real strong heads up on this. So we're going to start first with this idea of 1099 versus W-2. So a little bit of historical context. Back in the day, like way back in the day, um, there was very little employment available. We really didn't have an employment market for career development until the early 2000s. So prior to that, self-employed was it. And spas and chiropractors, and those were the two biggies. Their model for massage therapists was independent contractor. Now, it's always been a misclassification of an employee, but it wasn't really enforced until the mid 2000s. So you'll still find job classifications where they want to classify you as a 1099 independent contractor. So we want to know what that really means. And then we want to know what it really means to be a W-2 based employee. And then we need to talk a little bit about how businesses can calculate wages. So, does anybody have, let me stop this for a minute. Does anybody have any experience with this idea of being an independent contractor? Anybody done anything like housekeeping or anything like that where they've been an independent contractor?
I have,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
that's okay. Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Riley.
I
Go
just,
ahead, Patricia. Tish. Go ahead, Patricia.
as an employer, I have an independent contractor and I have one employee. Um, and for me, it's based upon how busy we are. So the independent contractor is the one that we will say, we don't need you right now, or can you come in more? The reason why Jill was put on as an employee came out of COVID, because of the benefits that employees got that neither she nor I got at the time, because we were not employees at that
Right.
time. So that's the difference between my two employees.
So we'll come back to you probably and talk about pay structures and how you calculate all of that. Marista?
Yep. My husband and I, he started his own business with the Pro Pooper Scooper. He saw a need and filled a need. I told him it
Yeah.
wasn't necessary, but that's because I come from a family where the kids do the yard work and stuff. So I was like, nobody's going to pay for that. So many people pay for it.
Yeah.
And because he was on his own and he's not looking at, other people's, or he's not an employee, he has to decide and make the decisions to balance how much it costs. So like if you have a bigger dog and a bigger yard, it's more expensive. But if you have a smaller dog and a small run, or if you have a big dog with a small run or a small dog and it uses the whole lawn. So, and he takes on who he wants to take on, and they can sign up for him to come monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, or just for like the spring cleanup is like the big one because it costs the most and people don't want to do it. So he gets that. But that's as far as like making his own decisions. And I guess it's not really a contractor thing, but he's having to do it on his own and figure it out that way.
So he's a business owner. He's a
Yeah.
sole practitioner with no help,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, if I go with
So
them, but I haven't so far.
yeah.
So,
So in that kind of a situation, um, he could bring on temporary help.
hmm
But it really depends on how it's constructed,
yep.
whether he would have to pull them in as an employee or a seasonal employee or an independent contractor, temporary help. I mean, it's very complex, and I want to point out that in all of these scenarios, if a business owner is not hiring help or contracting with help correctly, it is the business owner that is going to get into major trouble, not you. You may end up with a bunch of benefits that you could have received and didn't. But
hmm
as far as legal action and penalties and all that kind of stuff, it's on the employer to do it correctly. So, okay, let's go back to the share screen and look at this. All right, Marista, you ended up on top here now. All right, so let's look at this 1099 thing first. If you are an independent contractor, generally what that means is that you have a skill that some other entity, whether it is a business or an individual, would want to have you come and perform for them. You're always self-employed. If you're in a 1099 sort of a status, then you're self-employed. Self-employed. That means that you set the costs, you set the time, you set the schedule, and then the person that is looking to contract with you decides if that fits. You bill them an invoice, they pay you. So one of the things they look at is what's the direction of the money. So let's look at each of these quickly. If you're a 1099, you're contracted for a specific project or time period. So I contract for the yard work, the plowing and the gas cutting and all that kind of stuff. I contract with a person who is self-employed. They figure out what the fee is going to be and how often are they, we decide how often they're going to mow and all that kind of stuff. And then we come up with a pay structure. I can pay them per service, or I can pay them over a year period, depending on the, doesn't matter how many services or whatever. They have other people that they also mow and plow for, not just me. If it was just me, and I set the time that they had to work and all that kind of stuff, they'd have to be an employee. All right.
I looked into 1099 my employees before and I couldn't do it because they only would have worked for me and they would have only done the same thing that we already do
Yep.
within the business.
All right. And even if I've gone through this with you before, there is so much confusion out there about this in the massage therapy world. So your 1099 is self-employed. You decide when and where to work. So I had a bunch of trees trimmed. And the person has their own business. I liked their credentials. I said, can you come and do this tomorrow? And they said, no, I can't. I'm already scheduled. Well, when are you available? Well, I can do it this next whatever. As opposed to me saying to the reception staff at the spa, your schedule is 9 to 4. And if that's the schedule I need, that's the schedule that works. If you can't work that schedule, then I can't hire you. All right, determines how to work, proceed, and what tools are used. Does not need or receive any skill training at the spa or at all. So when we hire somebody new at the spa, we spend time onboarding them. They come in, they look at all the tasks. We have them get an idea of what the desk is like. We teach all the add-ons. We do all of that stuff. If anybody does that with you and requires you to do that, you're not an independent contractor. You're not self-employed. An independent contractor would come in and say, this is how I'm going to do it. These are the skills that are needed, that sort of thing. Does not attend meetings or give any regular reports. They come in, they do their tasks that they were contracted for, they send you an invoice, you pay it. Performs work requiring specialized skills that are not the client's primary service. So our primary service at the spa is massage therapy. We contract with an accounting firm. that has their own business because we aren't accountants. So I can contract with my accountant, but I cannot contract with massage therapists or estheticians because our primary service of our business is massage therapy. Anybody got any questions so far? Are you getting the difference on this? All right. Okay.
So Patricia, you have a business that does screen printing?
No, it's
Yeah.
retail. It's retail is something.
Yeah,
it-
it's, we do decorated apparel, so there's screen printing, embroidery, vinyl. I
So
have a
we could
storefront.
contract, for example, we could contract with a business like that for our
Right,
shirts or sweatshirts or whatever, but we couldn't do it as a W-2 employee.
But
right. Yeah.
Patricia has to be careful because if she has somebody that's coming in to do a job that she is training them for, they're following her instructions.
Right.
She has to claim them as an employee. We can contract with
Right.
your business, but you cannot necessarily contract for your workers. It really gets weird.
And I would bet that Anne is probably should be considered an employee, but because she has a special needs son, there are weeks that she wouldn't be able to come in. So we're at her beck and call, like she gives us the hours she can work. I
Yeah,
don't tell her when she can work. I just accept it as this is help for a couple hours a week.
yeah. And you're
So it's hard.
probably on the edge as
Mhm.
long as somebody. So let's say this happened during COVID. Let's say that during COVID, people who were classified as independent contractors, but were really employees,
Mhm.
could not get unemployment. And so they thought they should be able to, the misclassified employees are, and there were people that went to the Internal Revenue and said, or why can't I get this? And then what came to light is that they were misclassified. And so a lot of times the worker doesn't know either. And so what there's a form that you go through and it's a checklist. And a bunch of massage therapists did this. And this is when we started to have a new awareness of this misclassified employee situation. And as it turned out, the employers had to come up with the back taxes and pay into all this other kind of stuff. And a lot of them had to close. Some of the really small ones, they couldn't do it. So there is a line, there are guidelines here, there is a line. But if I'm consulting with people that want to start a business, I will be very firm with them and I'll say classify them all as W-2. Just don't take the chance. And I will say to massage therapists, unless it is very, very, very clear that you are renting space and running your own business, if you are working in conjunction with a spa or a chiropractor or a pain clinic or anything like that, you should probably be a W-2 employee. If you're going to be treated like a W-2 employee, then you should have the benefits of what that is. And the reason why some businesses try to skirt around this is that When you're self-employed, you pay all of your own payroll taxes and everything. When you are an employee, the employer has to pay part of that. There's a whole payroll burden that goes with that. And there are some people that try to skirt around that by telling you that you're 1099. Not true. So, okay, whoops, let's get through this list here. Provides their own tools, responsible for their own expenses and risk of loss. So if they break something on the job, I don't have to replace it. They have to replace it. If one of the employees at the spa breaks something, then we have to fix it. May delegate tasks to others. So I contract with a plumbing firm that is going to come in and fix the toilet. And all my negotiations happened with this one person. So then 2 days later, somebody else comes in to fix the toilet, and I'm upset because I want the person I talked to fix the toilet. But I really can't, as long as the toilet gets fixed, when I contract with a business to do that, I can't keep them from using other qualified people to do the job. So let's go through this W-2 side. Works on an ongoing basis and may be terminated at will. We'll come back and look at will employment. Has a required work schedule and location. You can work at multiple places as an employee. You can be self-employed and be an employee. But if there is a regular schedule and a location, and it is the main part of the business, then you're an employee. You're told how to perform the work, in what order, and what tools to use. You may be trained or instructed. You may attend frequent meetings and give regular reports. We have regular staff meetings. You may perform work that is the business's primary service. So if we want to do a wellness night at the spa, and I have a yoga instructor come in and do a little simple yoga thing, I can contract with them. But I can't contract with the general massage therapist to come in and do chair massage. Because yoga is not part of our primary service, but massage is. Is paid hourly wage or salary and is governed by minimum wage and overtime laws. And this is dicey right now for employers across the nation. You're reimbursed for all expenses needed for work. So if we required that our staff wear a shirt that says Health Enrichment Center Wellness Spa on it, we have to provide it for them. If we say the dress code is black scrubs, then they can get that for themselves. Because that's an expense. If we say we're going to use Biotone lotion, and we run out, and one of our staff says, oh, I've got a bunch of it at home, I'll bring that in. We have to reimburse them for that. May work full-time and exclusively in an area or not. You can work 2 days a week as an employee in this place and 1 day someplace else and see clients on the side. And, remember, the burden of being correct here falls to the employer. And they perform their work. They can't, when you're an employee, you can't come in and sit there and say, oh, okay, well, I'll have Kylie do my massages today. Or I'm going to send in, my neighbor to come in and do my massages today. All right. So where the confusion comes in is that the business trying to set up their business model so that you quasi look like you're self-employed. And so the independent contractor, and they tend to want to pay you per massage. And they don't take out any taxes. The problem is they collect the money, they do the booking for you. Maybe they let you make your schedule. Maybe they let you wear what you want. Or maybe not. Maybe there's some guidelines around that. Maybe they're trying to look at this idea of autonomy. But if they collect the money and write you a check or deposit money in your account, you're an employee. Bottom line. That's one of the things that gets really odd when we're looking at different ways where people are practicing. And if they were going to catch you, Patricia, with your one, that would be how they would do it, is that you write them a check. The only way you could get away with that is if they invoiced you. They would have to invoice you for the time. So, so what's happened with this misclassification of employees, the businesses know better. They all know better. There's no excuse out there for anybody to say, oh, I didn't know. They all know better. And so they don't want to get caught with this. So now they rent a room to the massage therapist. That's still not enough. If they still schedule for you, if they collect the money, if they write you a check at the end of the service period, if they pay you a percentage of the fees collected, those are all falling into the employee category. And what you're missing is that 7% of the payroll taxes that the employer has to pay. You're missing the ability to have unemployment because they have to pay into unemployment. You're missing workers' comp if you're injured at work because they have to pay for that. You're missing protection of the minimum wage laws. And maybe minimum wage isn't a lot, but some of these independent contractor misclassifications, they'll have you come in and then you will do one massage and they'll pay you 50% of the fee. And then you'll sit there all day until another one maybe comes in or not. But you've been on premise for 6 hours and made $2 an hour. Can't do that. If you're scheduled and you're on, you're there and you have to be available, you have to be paid at least minimum wage. So how these people get away with it is they'll say, okay, I'll pay you 40% of the massage fee. I will pay you that. And or minimum wage, whichever is greater. So if you do 3 massages in 6 hours, and it equals out that you made $9 an hour for that, then the employer has to make up the difference because minimum wage in Michigan is 10.33 right now. But if you did enough massage during the day so that when it was divided, even if you get 40% or you get $25 a massage or however that is, once you divide it by the number of hours you were on site, if it's 10.34 per hour, they're legal. And so you didn't make $25 an hour. You made 10.33 an hour. All right, do we have any reality checks here yet? So a lot of people, especially if you look at ads on Indeed, and we've done that, I've done that with classes before, they'll say $35 per hour. No, that's $35 per massage. And it doesn't matter how many you do, and those almost always are not legally classified as employees. A lot of them are trying to sneak still with the independent contractor. So people will say, well, I'm not going to take this job because I'm only getting paid $20 an hour. But if that's an average of all hours on the clock, that's good. So people will say, well, because you will pay, if you pay a percentage, if you get a percentage and they have you classified as an independent contractor, they don't have to abide by minimum wage laws. They do not have to pay any of the employment taxes. They do not have to pay for any of the workers' comp or any of that kind of stuff. And so for a business, they're only paying money out when they're actually getting money in. And so that's one of the other reasons why they try to do this. And I'm going to tell you, chiropractors are notorious for this. And don't get caught up on the rent room either. If you are truly renting space, if you're truly doing that, then you don't pay rent based on a percentage of the massage. You negotiate a monthly rent. Now, you can rent a space for a day or an hour or a week or a month. You can do that. But it's a flat fee. It's not, okay, you pay, we're going to charge $80 for the massage and you're going to pay me 20 for each massage that you do. And that is going to be your rent. Yeah, no, you decide what your rent is going to be. That's your space. You rent it. Now, if you're renting it like for a half a day and you're sharing it with somebody else, then there's going to be some facility issues and whose equipment is what and all that. That has to be worked out. And this shared space concept is actually quite popular right now, not just for massage therapists. Somebody has space available. It's generally outfitted to fit. So like you see this with counselors a lot, or tax preparers or insurance people. They'll rent a room that's kind of a generic room and they'll meet with their clients there one day a week and that sort of thing. But it's a flat rate, and you pay that on the agreed upon terms, usually monthly, to your landlord. You collect all of your money. They don't collect your money for you. You do all of your scheduling. They don't do that for you. You don't get a check from them. You write them a check or transfer money however your rent's going in. They don't 1099 you. You 1099 them for the rent you paid as a business expense. What a 1099 is a report for business expenses that go into the internal revenue that show that somebody else got money. So people like to hide money. So if you don't 1099 your landlord, then they're not going to necessarily claim that you paid them any rent at all. So, yeah, so am I making sense here on how this goes together? I see some heads nodding. All right. If you are a correctly classified employee, there are different ways you can get paid. You can get paid per piece. That means for every massage you do, you get 30% or you get $20 or you get $25 or whatever. You can get paid that way. And at the end of the pay period, it is divided by the number of hours you worked. And as long as it has reached the minimum wage threshold, the employer is legal. So you always want to know if you're interviewing for a position and they're paying you per piece, you want to know what you're actually making per hour, not per massage, per hour. And that will vary when you're paid per piece. Sometimes they call it a commission, paid on commission. They can do that as long as it meets the Department of Labor laws. They can pay you per piece. They can pay you a straight wage, whether you do massage or not. Like say, okay, we're going to pay you $16 an hour or whatever, regardless. So that's that. Or we're going to pay you a rate for when you are not doing massage and a rate for when you are doing massage. So if you're helping around, if you're not scheduled and you're folding laundry and you're cleaning the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, that yes, you do that, they are going to pay you a base rate for that. Now, it does not have to be minimum wage. It can be less than minimum wage. And then when you're doing a massage, you're getting $25 for that massage. And then the same thing happens. They add it all together and they divide it by the number of hours scheduled. And as long as it reaches the minimum wage threshold, they are legal. So volume matters when you're a massage therapist, unless you're paid straight wages, which is not common. Because if you're not producing, if you're not doing massage and bringing money into the business, they don't have any money to pay you. So it's not, but reception or facility management or something like that, they're paid a straight wage usually. But massage therapist, that's not common. If you were going to find that, it would be in a medical setting, like if you went and worked at a hospital or something. And they don't like to do that either. Lots of times they'll have you classified as temporary help or something like that. But if you hired into the VA and worked at the VA hospital, you would get straight wages. All right. The other way that they can pay is a base. That you always get a base. And then they can pay a fee or a bonus or whatever you want to call it on top of that. So that's similar. It's similar to a base when you're not doing massage and a massage fee when you are doing massage. I think that confuses people. When, I talk to lots of people, I think that is confusing for people. Regardless, as long as it meets the minimum wage threshold and they're withholding their taxes like they're supposed to and all that kind of stuff, the employer is fair. The employer is paying fair. Has anybody talked to other massage therapists or estheticians or cosmetologists or whatever that have talked about this in terms of how they're paid and what they're, how much they make or anything like that? No?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a family friend. She has her own unit actually downtown in Lapeer. I think we've talked about this before. And yeah, she talked about so her rates actually, we just talked about this. Her rates are really, really low. She's been doing massage for like 12 years, and her rates for a 1 hour massage are still $45.
Yeah, that's too low.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, obviously, I'm no expert, but everywhere you look, it's like a minimum of 60, 70 bucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she just talked about the fact that she has a really loyal client base and she doesn't want to raise it on them. And, you know, uh, I mean, you were talking a little bit about the hiding money thing, but she was kind of talking about the fact that she keeps it at 45. That's what she gets for her massages. And then if she gets tips and cash, that's just kind of, her
Yeah.
like bonus money or whatever. Um, so yeah.
Now that loyal clientele that keeps her schedule as full as she wants it to be is
Mhm.
something to be said.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to advertise. She doesn't have to. Her schedule is solid all the time.
And if I were talking to her, I would say, don't raise your rate.
Yeah, she doesn't. Yeah, that's what she was saying. She's like, I
It-
don't want to do it. She's like, I hear, what other people are charging, and she's like, but I can't. It's working for me. So
Her business is stable. She's got
yep,
people. She's not looking to grow her business. She's paying her
right.
expenses. The other thing I
Yes,
would say to her is, though, don't take on an employee.
right.
Because a lot of people that get themselves into a situation like this, then they think, well, I got more people than I can manage and handle. I need to hire somebody else or share the space or whatever. And I would tell a small sole practitioner, I would say, don't do it. Don't mess up what's working. Now she can't be in her rented space 24/7. There may be time that she's not there and she would like to generate a little extra income. And she would say, okay, I can rent space to another massage therapist or esthetician or whoever, that would fit into the room area uh, um, for 3 hours on Wednesday and 6 hours on Saturday. And I am going to charge X number of dollars per for that schedule, right there. Um, the person comes in, they develop their own clientele, they do their own marketing. Yeah, there can be a little referral back and forth and all that, but not much. Not much. And then I would tell her, as no matter how much you love people, as soon as you're sharing space with them and working with them, you might as well be married to them. And there's a lot of pressure out there on these solo practitioners that are doing really well. There's a lot of pressure on business coaches and stuff like that that are doing really well to raise your prices, and you're not being charged you're not charging what you're worth, and you should be doing more of this and all that. And some people, quite a few in the massage world, have succumbed to that, and have really suffered. You know, they've lost clients, and you know, the idea of the loyalty and the retention clientele and all that kind of stuff, that's important. Now her rates are low for the area, but I would guess that the clients are making it up in tips.
Yeah,
Which,
that's what she made it sound like.
yeah, and right, wrong, or indifferent,
Right,
and she could get caught.
right,
You know, tips are income. They're supposed to be
right,
claimed on your,
right.
you
But
know,
we all know how that goes.
you
Whether
know,
you're a server or whatever,
yep, yep.
But yeah, yeah, I agree. And I mean, everything that you said is everything that she said. Like, why try to fix it if it's not broken? It works. I can pay my bills. I have loyal clients. I don't have to like really put in a ton of work to get people. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not going to change anything.
That's how I worked for 35, 40 years. It's just
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Referral, your expenses are low, you know, and but it takes a while to get there.
It did. Yeah. It did. She was working at a gym. And she said there's a lot of times where I would have to give out 20, 30-minute massages for free
Oh, yeah.
just to like get myself out there. So, I mean, she definitely put in the work and spent a lot of time, building up that client base, but it paid off.
Yep. That takes about 5 years. Just, you know, if you're looking at different career models and different business models for yourself, takes about 5 years to be where she's at right now, if you work diligently. Because you got to find those, you got to sift through all of those initial client visits and find that core. So she probably doesn't need the 100 I mentioned earlier. She
Mm.
probably has maybe 30 to 40 people on her roster. I guess she does at maximum 20 sessions a week.
Yeah, I think she said it was like about 15 to 20.
Yep,
She
that's
was
very,
doing much more than that, and then she burnt herself out.
yep, yep,
So then she had to step back, and
yep.
she said the 15 to 20 is much more sustainable.
Uh, so I'm glad you piped up on this, because this is the ideal model, but you are not going to make $100,000 a year
Mhm.
like you will see on stuff. I would make a guess that if we looked at her income tax, that what she reports to pay income tax on, she's hovering at about 30.
Yeah. Could be true. She didn't tell me that part, but yeah, that's
And there, but and then there's the money that we're not going to talk about,
right.
you know.
Right.
Now her business gross is more than that. But
Right.
she's still got to pay her rent. She's still got expenses. She's still got a phone. She's still got a laundry. She's still got all of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, uh, how long has she been doing massage?
About 12 years.
Yeah, she was right on the cusp where
She did not have to take the exam. She was
yeah,
grandfathered in.
and likely there still was not, especially in our area, any kind of employment potential.
Mhm.
When we came in with the spa 10 years ago, um, everybody was doing the independent contractor thing and all that. We were the only ones that were doing the correct employment thing. And we had some issues because people would say, well, you don't want to, you don't want to work there. Well, I only hire my graduates anyway, so it didn't matter to me. But, they don't pay enough. They don't pay enough. Oh, yeah. If you look at all of the money that is spent to support an employee and compare it to what the expenses are for self-employed, statistics are showing that for the same number of clients, employees are making more than self-employed. It's been that way for the last 2 years coming out of the AMTA. But this is the kind of profession where if you want to strike out on your own and do that, you want to be your own boss, you can. And you need to understand what it takes to do that. And you also need to know that it's not going to happen overnight. Whereas if you do take an employment position with a solid, good employer that has a relatively stable business, you're going to be making money almost right away. The thing you have to remember is that you're beginners, and you have to work yourself up to where a top pay would look like, right? You can't expect to get paid the same thing that somebody's got 12 years of experience if you go into an employment situation. And then again, if you look at Facebook or anything, what you're going to find is people are they're talking about what they make after they've been in there for 15 years instead of giving a realistic expectation to an entry-level practitioner. And that breaks my heart because people go into this. You don't go into massage just for the money. There is a compassionate drive somewhere in there. But you got to make enough money. This is your income, right? You need to make enough money to be able to do that, or it doesn't. You can have all the compassion in the world, and it doesn't matter. And they can't do it because their expectations are all jacked out of shape. And there's a school here in Michigan that tells their graduates that they should get 60 to 65% of the fee charged. They should be paid for downtime, and they only should do 3 massages a day. An employer can't do that. They can't do it. There's something called a wage burden for an employer that looks at sustainability. And if an employer or a business wants to go get a business loan for something, they're going to look at what your wage burden is. If your wage burden is more than 40%, you're not going to get a loan because your business isn't viable in their mind. Unfortunately, right now, massage therapy and service-based businesses are pushing their wage burden to 50% or higher. And that's making for a very unstable market out there. And if you're going to work for an employer, you want them to be stable. But at the same time, you can't go in there and expect that they're going to give you 3/4 of what the fee is. And I know Andrew for sure. I don't know about the rest of you, but Andrew in the back of his career plan has got this idea of providing space and business and all that kind of stuff. And massage therapists have really unrealistic expectations of what their income is because they're too used to listening to people that were under that old 1099 50, 60, 70% of the fee idea. So, all right, let's see what I got next here. So for the classes graduating in April, we'll talk about this again. And the one that'll graduate next fall, we'll look at this again as it becomes more real for you so that you can map out what you want your career to look like.